Welcome to Table Talk, the place for deep conversations in the Geekverse. And trust me, when we tear into a subject, we go deep. I'm Heath, and I'll be your host. Each episode, I'll be talking with one or more creators, authors, illustrators, publishers, or other movers and shakers in games, TV, books, movies, or other areas of the Geekverse. Regular guests include Douglas A. Burton, the author of Faraway Bird, a multi-award-winning historical fiction novel of the Byzantine Empress Theodora. He's also the author of the Heroine's Labyrinth, an alternative story structure to the hero's journey that often occurs in stories with feminine heroes. That structural framework frequently comes up in our analysis of story. Brianna De Silva, she's the director and co-writer of The Cultists, a Lovecraftian comedy mockumentary-style web show here on YouTube, and the author of The City of Reckoning, an epic fantasy novel of political intrigue, the ethics of war, and young love. Cameron Pasha is a screenwriter, director, novelist, and was a writer and producer on the series Kings, a producer on NBC's Bionic Woman, and a co-producer and writer for Sleeper Cell. He's also written for the CW series Nikita and Roswell, New Mexico. He's been breaking news from inside Lucasfilm, Disney, and Hollywood. His analysis and commentary have become very popular on YouTube. We regularly meet to discuss and analyze stories, and when we do, we dive into graduate-level seminars on story structure and writing. Come on in and let's go deep. And when I say we're going deep, I mean you'd better bring your hard suit. Other guests have included Lou Anders, the author of the Thrones and Bones fantasy novels, Once Upon a Unicorn, the creator and publisher of the Norengard RPG, and the author of Star Wars, A Pirate's Price, the book that explains why the Millennium Falcon is on the planet Batu at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Mark Tassin, the creator of the World of Ataltis, head of Mechanical Muse, former director of the Gen Con Writers Symposium, and the head developer of the new Cool Name RPG. Let's see, who else?
Bond. James Bond.
Well, not James Bond. Not yet. Maybe soon, though. But I have interviewed Jamie Stegmaier, the founder of Stonemaier Games, crowdfunder extraordinaire, and publisher of many hit board games like Scythe and Wingspan. Brian Colin, sculptor of the world of Revelo Monster Busts, and the creator of the Vast Grim Dark Horror RPG. Ajit George, the Dungeons & Dragons author. We talked about game writing, education, and his contribution to Van Richter's Guide to Ravenloft and the development of the Journeys to the Radiant Citadel.
I am Hela, Odin's firstborn, commander of the legions of Asgard, the rightful heir to the throne and the goddess of death.
Well, actually, that interview got rather spicy, so I think I'd better just keep that one to myself. Kate Wilson, a YouTuber, actress, host, and prolific geek guru who's now working to make a new show dedicated to the world of tabletop gaming a reality. So buckle up and get ready for a wild ride, because it's time to explore the worlds of tabletop gaming, sci-fi, fantasy, and all of geekdom through the eyes of those who are making things happen.
Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed.
Roger, ready to move out.
It's time for Table Talk. Hello, everyone. Welcome. It is so good to have you. Welcome this evening. Welcome to my home. Welcome to the office. And welcome to Table Talk. It is great to be back with you tonight. We're going to be talking about a very classic sci-fi movie, and actually one that has come up quite a bit as we've been talking about, especially the Heroine's Labyrinth over the last several episodes, and that is Alien. And who better to talk about that, therefore, with than Douglas A. Burton. Welcome, Doug.
What's happening, everybody?
Hey. So tonight, I actually kind of felt bad as we've been going through here, because, of course, I've seen Alien, but it had been actually a long time since I had watched it. And as we've been talking, because we've talked about Ripley, because of the Heroine's Labyrinth and all of that over many episodes. And I generally remembered it, but mainly my a memory of Alien was just certain scenes, and images and things like that. And so when I went back and rewatched it over the weekend, of course, there were those images that I remembered, but a lot of it was like watching it fresh.
Oh, good.
So, all right. Well, Doug, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes.
Website right up here.
My name is Douglas A. Burton, and I'm an author, and I have a book coming out on March 26th Many of you in the chat have heard about it. It's called the Heroine's Labyrinth. You see it on the screen. I have the prototype here. It is an alternative story structure that is, I would say, an alternative to the hero's journey, but not a replacement by any stretch. I still firmly believe in the hero's journey and have high regard for it. But also by studying hero-centric stories, I found 18 other unique archetypal designs that form its own narrative arc. And we'll talk about some of that tonight with Alien. Alien was one of the movies I studied.
So here is the link to it, the Amazon is where to get it.
Amazon is where to get it. You can pre-order it, which of course I strongly recommend the pre-order. And I can't wait. This channel has been such an ally with the Heroine's Labyrinth. We've had several discussions about it. Many of you in the chat have talked with me and Heath at length about it. And as a result, it improved the book. I was able to make changes based on our back and forth before the final draft went out. So thank you to everyone on this channel.
And see, Robert says Robert's got his copy ordered.
Awesome, Robert. I like you. I knew I liked you.
And there is a lot going on over on my side. I have been really working to try to get things marketed so we can get advertising going, because I mean there's so many things going on my end as well. But we've been we're putting out, by the way, starting I hope tomorrow. I've been trying to get this out for the past 2 days and I haven't quite gotten out yet. But with regard to the Heroine's Labyrinth, we've got tons and tons and tons of clips from our discussions here on the channel about the Heroine's Labyrinth. And yes, we've got fantastic long form 3-hour, 4-hour, sometimes probably 5-hour discussions about things. I know not everybody can watch those, so we put a lot of effort into clipping those discussions into like 6 to 12 minute YouTube videos. And Brianna, who's not here tonight, but she's done a tremendous job making thumbnails for this. And so on this channel, we'll be rolling out a lot of clips. So if you missed it during the live streams, targeted clips on specific subjects are going to be start rolling out very soon about the Heroine's Labyrinth and also other conversations too. So we're going to get those going like directly here on this channel. Also, I hope. Whoops, let me turn that down. The cultists right here. The cultists were also. I've also been working on a strategy to get somebody I noticed in the comments like a week ago on the cultists was like, "How in the world are people still sleeping on the cultists?" I was like, I got to get the marketing going. I got to figure out how to get this out. Mm-hmm. So the cultists is my YouTube channel. That is my show about modern day Lovecraftian cultists who just want to worship Cthulhu in a world full of people who don't understand. I am the creator, producer, and co-writer. Brianna, again, who's not here tonight. Amazing how often she comes up. She does a lot of stuff. Brianna is the co-writer, my co-writer. So she and I wrote it, and she was also the director. And the first 3 episodes are on the channel right now. So if you haven't seen that, we got the trailer up. We got the first 3 episodes up. We also have commentary from Brianna and me. Look, there's producer's commentary right there. Director's commentary. So it's like behind the scenes DVD footage. So it's a mockumentary style show. So like The Office or Parks and Rec, but you're following around Lovecraftian cult who hang out in the park a lot. Come and see that. I'm getting some marketing going for that. So hopefully we can get people to watch it here on YouTube.
Awesome.
All right. Okay. So now we're talking about Alien, and I know that Doug has lots of notes.
Hello, everybody. It's just me all of a sudden. I was wondering why Heath put me big on the screen here, and I realized we lost Heath.
He kicked me out. Okay, I'm back.
There he is.
All of a sudden, it kicked me out of the studio. Okay,
that's not cool.
So I'm back. Anyway, so I was saying I've got some notes, but Doug I know has lots of notes because the Heroine's Labyrinth was one of the major films that was studied for. Aliens was one of the major films that was studied for the Heroine's Labyrinth. The Aliens Labyrinth. Alien was studied for the Heroine's Labyrinth.
Yeah, both Alien and Aliens. I think it's almost inarguable at this point that Ellen Ripley is one of the top heroines of all time in almost everybody's mind. She's almost an indisputed champion in the pantheon of heroes. Her and Sarah Connor seem to go hand in hand. So obviously The Terminator and Aliens were two movies that I watched in depth. And what's interesting is as I began to study heroines in earnest in literature and other areas, I had come back to Alien and Aliens, Terminator 2 to rediscover the Labyrinth after, because these were, I studied these early on and then I studied them again later. So this is Alien is actually a great Heroine's Labyrinth model. However, it is stripped down a little bit because it is also a horror film. So it kind of follows some of the tropes and elements of a horror film. And the horror genre, even in the back of my book, I discuss it. The horror genre is one of the best. I don't know if you can see it. One of the best genres that also features the Heroine's Labyrinth. It just strips out some of the archetypes and really front loads the other archetypes and puts them on steroids. So Home is Battleground, the Masked Minotaur. These are huge tropes in the Heroine's Labyrinth. So, and the other thing that's interesting is the horror stories are classically one of the more difficult story types to work with the hero's journey. So I was very pleased that the Heroine's Labyrinth did not have that problem.
I was going to say, I meant to put this together. I was just thinking about this right now. Let me put this up on screen because sometimes the historical picture is often important. And we had talked about that on some other videos. So I think that might be important here to start with, because we had talked about, okay, this is 2001, A Space Odyssey. Okay, and that came out April 2nd, 1968. So that was 68 that came out. And then, okay, Star Wars. Oh, wait. Star Wars. I'm sorry, I got that out of order. So, okay, so Star Wars, the original movie, was 1977, May 25, 1977. Okay, then Space Odyssey was 68. That's the next year. Okay, and then the Alien movie was 79, May 1979. And some material that I was looking at was talking about how Alien was a response in some ways to Star Wars.
Yes.
Star Wars came out, was very successful. Of course, it takes a while to get a movie up and running. So we end up with, 2 years later, Alien, although I had also heard that the script was written beforehand. It wasn't something that was conceived after Star Wars. It had been conceived before Star Wars and been sat on.
Right.
Okay.
Right. In fact, Heath, I think you just did a beautiful job of framing this discussion to start us in Alien, because I regard those three movies as the big three to have really punched a hole into the science fiction genre. A lot of us, Gen Xers, millennials, we were born into a world where sci-fi was all the rage. And while studying this film and like looking into the backstory of Alien, really discovered what had happened in the 60s and 70s and where sci-fi was. Sci-fi was B-rate. It had low budgets. The imaginative realm of science fiction simply did not have the budgets or the technology or the craftsmanship in some cases to bring the vision to light. And so the 40s and 50s always had some sci-fi, and it was always considered like B-level. You did have things like Forbidden Planet and The Day the Earth Stood Still, but those are still very toned down in terms of the science fiction elements in a lot of ways. There's the Thing from Outer Space. Most of them take place on Earth, except for Forbidden Planet. But what I found, what really happened was in 1968, 2001: A Space Odyssey came out, and this was the first real movie that when viewed.
Oh wait, 68. I'm sorry, I had that completely back. It's 68. Yes.
Yeah, 1968. You had it exactly right.
Yeah.
When people saw 2001, suddenly they weren't watching a B movie. This wasn't hokey, fun, campy, B-level sci-fi, which a lot of them were. That was the impression of the genre at the time. And suddenly you've got these like NASA-level astronauts on this NASA-looking futuristic spaceship. You've got Stanley Kubrick, creating one of the classics, not these quick, quippy shots on Earth, long shots inside the corridors of another planet. You're on the moon. You've got the monolith. You've got all these things. And 2001 served as pretty much the breakthrough science fiction story of all time at the time. And it was very hard to follow up on until Star Wars. Star Wars comes out, to Heath's point, in 1977 and blows the lid off of pop culture. This wasn't your heavy sci-fi. This was fun. This was swashbuckling. This was adventure. This was the good guys against the bad guys. This was in the realm of real. They put the fantasy into science fiction. And of course, everyone knows Star Wars took the world by storm. And of course, at that point, Heath just said that the script to Alien had been written prior. And it was written actually as a response to one of the main writers, Dan O'Bannon, was part of the film school phenomenon with George Lucas and John Carpenter and all those guys. And he wrote a story called Dark Star, which was he got lucky, and he was one of the lucky few film students whose project made it all the way to the big screen. And Dark Star is considered a commercial failure. However, it also is considered kind of a cult classic. And it was a comedy. It was a comedy about a sci-fi world. And it's very hokey. It fits the B-level model. The alien's like a beach ball. It's not very convincing at all. And so he had this idea of taking Dark Star and saying, well, what if I didn't make it a comedy? What if I made it like scary and real? And the premise to Dark Star is in essence the exact same premise for Alien. And after Star Wars came out, Hollywood Studios says, sci-fi, what do you got? We want it. And he said, Dan O'Bannon, they greenlighted Alien like within seconds. So suddenly Alien goes out there, and I would regard Alien as the next big science fiction film to break through. And Heath is exactly correct. Whereas Star Wars was wild, fun, adventuresome, this was a little bit of a return to form, a little bit more like 2001. They wanted it to have the more serious, ethereal aspects when they made this. So Heath is exactly right. This was a little bit of an antithetical response to the Star Wars phenomenon, and I would say a successful response.
That's all excellent. So now we got our timeline right. So actually, to go back one, Star Trek, the original series, 1966 to 69. June to 69. So in the middle of that, in April in 68, that's when Space Odyssey comes out. And so you've got to think about that movie in the context of what the science fiction at the time was showing.
Yes, and keep this in mind. At the time that 2001 came out, the United States had not landed on the moon. So this was still the Sputnik age. This was the age of Gemini and Mercury. We landed on the moon, I think, July 21st, 1969. So this is about a year. Yeah, I think, July 21st, 1969. So this came out roughly 69. A year before 2001: A Space Odyssey. So this was in the
Space Odyssey first.
Yes. The beating heart of the American foray into space. So at this time, and I'm sure this crew knows, but it was there was a buildup to the Apollo missions. They started with the Gemini mission, the Mercury missions, and those were staged. So at around this time in 1968, the Apollo missions had begun in stages, of course, culminating on July 21st with Apollo 11, which was the stage that made it all the way to the moon and landed. So this is the heart of it, and so by the time Star Wars came out, that was a post-lunar landing world. The last lunar landing was 1972. Space had kind of punched a hole into the mainstream consciousness of the United States, and I would say at least the West or the world. And now you've got science fiction is now a legit genre. And in our generation, we would come to embrace it in full, as though it had always been there.
So, yeah, that was 69. We just said 70. So that's a long skip from the moon landing to Star Wars.
Right.
But then Alien, 79.
And I think you have another one in 1979 queued up.
Right. And I do, because that is... Well,
so wait, Alien came out May 25th. When did Star Trek 1 come out?
In December. Here we go. December. So that's fascinating that Star Trek, the motion picture, and Alien came out the same year. Alien came out first. And then later that year, same year, the motion picture came out. So that's also really exciting to think about, or important to think about, because when you're just watching these movies, like, okay, but I like to put them in historical context like that. That's fascinating that Alien and Star Trek, the motion picture, are the same year release.
Yeah, within 6 months of each other, basically.
Yeah.
6 months. And, if you think about it, Star Wars is really a peak of the future. The attitude, the tone, the fun of Star Wars is what would come to define the 1980s, whereas I would say 2001 is really kind of its own thing in 1960. But Star Trek 1, the motion picture, and Alien both continue what I would say is kind of a visceral, more serious, grounded and sober 1970s feel, right. Which these movies have in droves. It's very serious. The characters, the dialogue, it's all much more serious. It's not swashbuckling at all with those two films. So these are very much a product of the 70s. Alien, whoa. Star Trek 1, the motion picture. And I would say that Star Trek 2 starts to slip a little bit more into the 80s Star Wars world, where it's a little bit more fun. You have a direct villain. It follows a kind of a new era in Hollywood that I would say rebuilt Hollywood. The sci-fi action adventure era.
Yeah, that's because we talked about how important it was when we talked about the motion picture a long time ago now, about a year ago, how important it was to understand that movie in the context of 2001: A Space Odyssey, even though it was 10 years before, but because the Space Odyssey was so revolutionary for its time, but also, okay, Star Wars drops in 1977 because they were going to do another Star Trek TV show, but the fact that they were going to do a movie was definitely a response to Star Wars. Like, Star Wars had come out, okay, we can't do a TV show, we need to go movie with Star Trek. Star Trek 1 was a response to Star Wars in that respect, but also heavily influenced by 2001: A Space Odyssey, and also Alien. And actually, BGD is saying Disney's the black hole.
Oh my God, I love the black hole. I was just going to point it out. The black hole is weird because it's kind of a hybrid. It's kind of a product of the 70s in its tone and feel, but it also tries to be Star Wars in its efforts to be a little fun with Vincent and Bob, and then the big dramatic, by the way, soundtrack. It's got two phenomenal tracks on that soundtrack. You've got that Star Wars like bum ba ba bum ba ba bum bum bum. That's yeah, it's really good. But then it's got John Barry with that hopeless overture. It's one of the best. I will listen to that tune at certain times, and it really chills me out. But it's got a great soundtrack, The Black Hole.
Well, that's really interesting because we talked about the overture with Star Trek: The Motion Picture, and this says right here when I brought that up, one of the last mainstream Hollywood films to have an overture at the start of the film. So this is like the very end of 1979. This is
right.
It was December 6th. You get the motion picture, Star Trek: The Motion Picture. Then you get the Black Hole in December 21st. That's the closing out an era. 1979 is closing out an era in a big way.
You said it, Heath. And the older I get, the more I recognize the 1970s fingerprints on things, like Superman 1, Star Wars, even Willy Wonka. I could not believe. I was like, when did Willy Wonka come out?
Was that Superman?
What's that?
You say Superman?
Yeah, Superman came out in 1978. And that has kind of a serious tone to it. It has Gene Hackman, a very edgy actor from the 1970s, playing the villain. Wow. So there's this 70s seriousness. And what you're getting here in Star Trek, Black Hole, Star Wars, Superman is the creeping in of the fun, adventuresome 80s that we grew up in. And you see it creeping in. I always think of these movies as like great childhood films. I remember my dad, he would play the record of Superman with the Superman march. He would tuck a red towel in my shirt and he would fly me around the house and then throw me on the bed. I loved it. It was the best thing. So these movies are part of my childhood. But now I look back and I'm like, man, they're still rooted in this. They're clearly rooted in the 70s.
That's fantastic. So 77 is Star Wars. Superman, one day we might just have to do an entire like chronology of film just to look at it, because this is
I would love that.
So 78, Superman 1 comes out. Alien, which we're talking about tonight, comes out the next year. But also, you're right, Superman 2, it says, is 81. So Superman 2 is an 80s film.
Yes. And so it's Star Trek 2 and Aliens. So all the sequels to these films were in the 80s, and they were filmed in the spirit and zeitgeist of 1980s Hollywood. And I loved it. The older I get, and some of the crap they're putting out today, I look at the 80s as a true golden age of storytelling.
That's fascinating. That's fascinating. I'm glad I meant to put together a slide and I just completely forgot. And I was like, oh my God, until I want to look at the timeline on that. So the timeline on this is
yes. So Alien is a part of the closing of the era, as you beautifully put, and the introduction of what would be some of the greatest films in sci-fi history coming next. You had Aliens is the follow-up to Alien. Terminator's coming here soon. Empire Strikes Back is in 1980. Like the big movies, the big guns are coming, and these are the films that laid that groundwork. And Alien, to me, is one of those films, historically speaking, and one of the big three to fight and plant that flag that sci-fi is legitimate storytelling. It's a crowd pleaser, and it's great film. That's all right. Sacred Fire.
Yeah, I know. I got my.
We're gonna have to. Hey, you're like you look like Dallas in the airbag.
When you think about it, I guess that's a good transition, because when you think about how this movie starts, it fits that era. Because one of the first kind of notes that I've got is this movie takes its time starting.
Yes, it does.
This is that type of era where we're gonna you ease into it. You're eased into this.
Well, and think about this. So Star Wars starts off, boom, you get the big logo, you're in space, you get the rolling scroll, ships come blasting in. That was our last memory of a great space film, right? What does Alien do? And this is their sort of antithetical response to Star. It opens up with this sort of like eerie sound, with this sort of like yellowy powdered nebula space dust, with the Jerry Goldsmith score, kind of like and it suddenly space looks very menacing and like unfriendly and empty and cold and scary, and it's not exciting. So it's completely the opposite. and I think we have to. So Star Wars played with the graphics with the opening scroll. This movie has a little fun too, but in its own character, it slowly builds out the word alien.
Right. Yeah, that's what Tomocrat I was just saying was talking about.
Yes, the glyphs. And I remember as a kid staring at it and being like, what the hell are they doing with that? And then I was like, oh my God, they just spelled alien. It was like I solved the puzzle, But yeah, now I love watching that opening. It's fun to try to see where the next piece of the puzzle is going to pop up.
So I think that's a great point, Doug, that, okay, if you're contrasting the music and the hits and that, but I had actually written something. So you're right. That's the first hit. But I was going to say that on the other hand, you start Star Wars with the iconic slow pass over the Star Destroyer. And you also get some slow passes to enjoy the Nostromo, right?
Yes, you're right.
So you do also start with kind of a grandiose pass over a large starship.
Correct. Yes. That's right. So as different as the tone is, they both give you the sense of scale of a ship in space. And it's really the same. It's an under the carriage shot of the spaceship passing over.
I was also actually, like I said, this was the first, I was basically I was watching it for the first time since this weekend, because it had been so long. When Ian Holm came up on the screen, the name Ian Holm.
Oh yeah.
I was like, oh my God, Ian Holm is in this?
Bilbo?
Yeah, I know. I was like, oh my God, it's Ian Holm. It's Ian Holm. And then I was also Top Gun guy. Oh my God, it's Ian Holm.
Tom Skerritt, dude.
Skerritt is in this, right? Yes. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I had not remembered that at all. So you get Ian Holm and you get Tom Skerritt. Awesome.
Yeah. Well, and oh shoot, what's her name? Who played Lambert? Victoria. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm drawing a blank. She was a pretty well-known 70s actress. In fact, she was cast because of her ability to
Veronica Cartwright.
Veronica. I said Victoria. Veronica Cartwright. Yes. She was cast because of her edginess and her ability to scream, and really her job was to be the audience, they told her. She actually originally tried out for Ripley, and didn't, and was a little upset that she didn't get it. She didn't get the Ripley job. And I don't know how many people know this, but Sigourney Weaver came from Broadway, or I would even argue, I think off Broadway. She was kind of making a name for herself in New York in the off-Broadway scene. And she's very tall. And if you've seen pictures of her when she was younger like that, she had a very striking face. And they brought her in. They really wanted to give her a shot at being a strong, commanding female presence in the film. And I think someone pointed out in the chat correctly, the script was actually written genderless.
Yeah, somebody. Yeah, I was listening to that on YouTube. So other people confirm that as well.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. It was written to be genderless. And what's funny is as they were discussing who might be a woman or a man, they said the one character that has to stay a man is Ripley.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was they're like you could flip any of them. They're technically gender neutral names. That's correct. However, they're like the one that we should probably keep a man is Ripley. And I don't remember who made the call, but they're like, Ripley's going to be a woman, and we want that woman to be a very strong presence. And they went with an off-Broadway actress who really didn't have a lot of on-screen practice. They and she Sigourney Weaver was, remember we just talked about the reputation of sci-fi as being B-level, like low, not so, it's kind of like if you want to be a Shakespearean actor, you're not going to do B-rate sci-fi. That was Sigourney Weaver's attitude. So according to all the stuff that I read, she was very much like, I'll try it because it's Hollywood. You don't say no to Hollywood, but maybe it'll lead to something else. But she really was not big on this role at all. And from what I read, one of the things that sold her is when she finally walked onto one of the completed sets of the Nostromo, and she saw those labyrinth-like hallways. She's like, "Holy shit, this looks legit." So they did some film tests with her with a flamethrower, walking through kind of that end scene to go get Jonesy, just playing and practicing, and they were like, "Man, she is good." So like that scene at the end when she, it's a pretty famous scene now where you have almost the strobe light going over her at the end, and she's like sliding down the wall. Very dramatic stuff. I guess that was the scenes they were practicing with including they actually makes you wonder about old Hollywood. They even had a scene with her topless making out with Dallas. And it wasn't even Tom Skerritt. It was some other guy. So it was like, was that a scam? It's like, just make out with that guy, So, but they practiced with her and they decided that she was excellent for the role. And Veronica Cartwright was moved over to Lambert. And she actually was very upset about that. And apparently it was sold to her by Stanley Kubrick, or I'm sorry, Ridley Scott. He's like, look, this isn't a demotion. Lambert is key because you are us. You are the audience in this film. So your fear is you are cueing the people in the theater. This is the normal way to feel. That's your job in this film. And she's like, okay, I can do that.
Yeah, I like BGD put in. I hadn't thought about this, but Nostromo says the Nostromo is slightly larger than Constitution class refit Enterprise at 334 meters, crewed by 7 people and a cat. I had not compared those, although Sable Phoenix says, well, but the Nostromo is kind of like the tugboat. That's exactly what Sable said.
Right.
Hauling this gigantic platform.
Refinery, right.
Yeah, that's going on. But yeah. So this is compared to, and we've actually talked about how often we think that Federation starships are undercrewed. Yeah, there's a lot of space on board this with just a few people.
And so we talked about the different tone. The look of the astronauts was a major thing that they did differently. So you've got 1968, 2001. Those are NASA-looking astronauts, clean cut, male white guys in space. They're exercising. It's a very sterilized environment. And then you've got Star Wars, where everyone's like, exotically swashbuckling. It's like Westerns. You got like monks in space. So it's very much fantastical. They went with truckers in space. I think that's the famous phrase that everyone.
Yeah, but it's not even uniformed like Star Trek.
Exactly.
We don't have that. We don't have the uniform.
Exactly.
Look. Right. Yeah.
So this is its own new breaking of the mold, just in how they dress. They said when they put Stanton in a Hawaiian shirt, people are like, "Is this gonna work?" He's like, "Absolutely." He's like, take a look at like the blue collar working class, look. They're doing all this exotic stuff in these remote places, but they're dressed, the Thing. They look like that. They're all dressed down. They're kind of hanging out. So they decided to go with that look, and they even encouraged the actors to play with it a little bit. And Stanton put on that Hawaiian shirt. Now it's kind of an iconic image for him in that film with the trucker hat and the Hawaiian shirt. Nobody had seen that in sci-fi. That was a bizarre take on what astronauts could look like in space. And I would say an awesome one. I think the blue collar hero became kind of a mainstay of the 80s as well. Big Trouble in Little China. He was wasn't Jack Burton a trucker? So that 80s working class hero, here's where you get some of that. Lots of smoke. Yeah, smoking, cigarettes.
You're smoking. You're right. Yeah. But I love the models. I mean, this is all physical models. I mean, a lot of the opening of this, there isn't even word spoken for several minutes into this.
Correct.
You're passing over the Nostromo, and the physicality, of course, I mean, I guess today you look at it, this looks like a model, I guess, but probably less than Star Wars did. Excuse me. Probably looks more like a model than Star Wars did, I would say. Like when I
would agree.
But I still loved we're in the realm of the physicality of the movie, passing cameras over model starships and things like that, and we're doing this physically.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's very physical, and the environments are very visceral. It's not CGI. Like when they're walking down those corridors, like those corridors are real. I saw some pictures of some of the sets, and they were pretty extravagant. And like I said, the sets are what sold Sigourney Weaver on the film being not B-rate, but something that might be kind of special. Something that has that sort of presence, that where the background world has presence just as much as the characters do.
Mm-hmm. Well, all right. I'll let you. I mean, you got a lot of information on this because this has been a subject of study. So where do we go from where do we go? We don't have to go scene by scene. I don't have the movie up.
No, we don't have to go scene by scene.
We can go theme by theme or whatever. What is the best way for us to approach this movie, Doug?
Well, I think we did a good job setting up the context of the film because that is vital. I think it is interesting how the film came together, and we actually touched on some of it. Last week, talking about Dune, because Dune has a weird little crossover with Alien. What did Sable say?
So Sable for $5 says the marketing for this. Here we go. The marketing for this film is iconic too. The trailer is harrowing. I did watch the trailer as well.
Yes,
you're right. With the rapid intercuts and the shrieking alarm noise, and then in space, no one can hear you scream, saying horror.
Yeah. Yeah, this is going to scare you out of your mind, and
this is not the space opera like Star Wars or something. I mean, this is something else. This is, and we've talked about that, I know, in other episodes as well.
Right, and in space, no one can hear you scream.
I was very attentive to that.
Yes, and in space, no one can hear you scream. It does two things at once. A, it's just a great line. You know, it's playing to the horror side of this. But two, it's also kind of in a subtle way telling you this ain't Star Wars, you know, where you can
Star Wars the opposite of that.
Exactly. You can hear lasers and explosions,
blast, engine roaring.
Yeah.
Here we go. Right. Whereas now this is saying space is something silent.
Right.
Where you are isolated. Very different from that.
And what's actually kind of funny is they never really work on that too much in the film itself. You get more of that in 2001, where all you hear is the breathing through the helmet and the silence when like Frank Poole goes tumbling away. So 2001 did a little bit more of showing you how silent space actually was. But as far as a tagline to get people into the theaters, that's one of the best. Even as a kid, I never forgot that one.
Did you see this in the theaters?
No, I did not. I was too young. In fact, my dad got in trouble. So my parents were very strict. I couldn't have toy guns. I wasn't able to watch rated R movies.
You couldn't have toy guns. What?
Yeah. So my parents were very strict, and my bedroom was right off the living room. So I remember I pounded a hole through my door, and I would try to watch movies through my door because I could see the living room TV. I was like, I am going to watch a rated R movie. And I remember the first time I did that, the movie was Nighthawks with I think Rutger Hauer's in it. Oh man. Anyway, Nighthawks was the first, but yeah. But anyway, I could not see these films. Let's go. Yeah, exactly. I was a film voyeur. But I remember my dad got in trouble because I think I was like 10 or something. And he really wanted to. Yeah, I was 10 because it was 1986. And Aliens came out on video. And my dad really wanted to watch Aliens. And I was like, Dad, can I see it? He's like, oh, no, there's too much swearing. And I convinced my dad to let me watch Aliens. So I stayed up late. And so I saw Aliens before Alien. And Aliens blew my hair back. I was so scared. Like that scene. I remember the scene where I was like, I'm getting uncomfortable. Was the scene when they were walking around, they saw those people cocooned like in frozen nightmarish positions with their stomachs. I was like, I don't like this. I don't like this like at all. But I just sat there kind of silently brewing over it. And then at the end where they're trying to escape and you have the flashing red light, Aliens blew my freaking mind. And it lodged itself in my head. So I had seen Aliens multiple times. And then my dad at one point was like, Doug, you got to watch Alien. It's the first. I was like, Aliens is so good. Why bother? And boy, was I wrong. So I finally watched Alien, and I was stunned by how different it was. As a film, the genre, it was totally different. It was a horror film, not an action film. And yet, completely sucked into this film. Yeah. So even though I saw it second, and even though I saw it much later, it totally held up, and it holds up now.
It actually sounds like then you had the same experience about Aliens 2 as a kid, or Aliens, Aliens as a kid, that I had with Terminator as a kid, when mom was like, yeah, okay, you can watch this. And that I was like, okay, I'm experiencing some trauma now.
I was totally traumatized. There's a scene where she's like, oh, we got a live one here. And this lady's like, kill me. I'm like, who would say that? And then she's like convulsing, and then the sting pops out of her, and then they grab a flamethrower and torture. I was like, what the hell am I watching? This is horrible. So yeah, for a 10-year-old, there's a lot to absorb. The cheapness of human life, that was always a big one that got me. But anyway, going back to Alien, it is much more of a classic trope of stalking the characters one at a time. And but Heath, you pointed out that they do not get into that. The first half of the film is really, really patient, really very patient in setting up its characters, the overall feel of the ship and the crew, the general situation that they're in, and then they spend a lot of time, I think, in my opinion, world building, establishing authenticity. That's an art I feel like is almost being lost at this point.
Well, okay, so there are a couple of directions that we could go. Oh, yeah, the Kane. Okay, because I was going to say that it was, it is slow building up, and it's not even clear who the main character is.
Right.
For a long way into this show, or this movie, arguably it's Kane. Possibly there is a lot of time spent on Kane, and I understand why that would be. Because this can be a switch. But so I guess if you had to pick one early on, it's him, because in the opening scene or the opening of the pods where they're getting out, Sigourney Weaver isn't even shown.
Oh yeah, you're right. I didn't even think of that.
I guess she was in the back or something like that, so she's not even on camera. So it is a while before you establish. Well, it's certainly a while before you establish her as the main character. A long while.
Yes, she is what I would call an emergent heroine. And by the way, she's an emergent heroine in Aliens. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but you're right. No, she emerges in the film as the lead.
Okay, I guess.
Well, there's one thing I would like to point out, and from a structural standpoint, this film is a great Heroine's Labyrinth film. However, there's unmistakable hero's journey elements to it. So the film opens with labyrinthine images, beautiful, slow, sweeping. You go through corridors. The Nostromo is a labyrinth. I mean, very clear cut. And classic in horror films, this is the confined space where the pressure cooker takes place. And this one is very strong with its labyrinthine imagery. So it does establish that. And then I would say that it snaps out of the labyrinth footage with the call to adventure, a hero's journey call to adventure. They get the transmission from space, and they literally wake up the crew.
Okay. Yes, that it would be a call to adventure.
Now, the heroine's call to adventure does technically come later, and I'll point that out. But there's some nuance because of what you said, Heath. Ripley is not the focus of the story. So some of the Heroine's Labyrinth tropes are either are minor or slightly modified, or they come in later because Ripley emerges later. So you get more of the tropes there. But the Labyrinth is unmistakable. Alien is actually a textbook. Here's the labyrinth opening.
Hold on,
and I'll also point out, to demonstrate structurally the compatibility of both the labyrinth and the hero's journey, the film has two villains, and each villain serves the purpose of each model. So the foreign militant,
we got to talk about that.
Yeah, the foreign militant villain, the outsider, is the alien. And then, of course, for the Heroine's Labyrinth, there's an insider.
You're right. We have an insider. We have a masked minotaur.
Who's disguised. Exactly correct.
Disguised. Oh, yeah, absolutely he is.
So, and Ripley pulls double duty with this one. And and by the way, Aliens has the same structure. It has the militant outsider and the hidden minotaur in disguise, homegrown, the insider. So Alien and Aliens are unique in that they have some of the tropes from both models, which I love. Wonder Woman actually does the same thing, by the way. Well, they have a militant the Nazi outsider, and then they have Ares, the god of war, one of her own gods in disguise for the whole movie. But anyway, so there are some structural elements being set up immediately in Alien. It's worth pointing it out.
Yes. Okay. So actually, I was thinking about this in terms of something that Brianna and I had talked about when we talked about horror, especially when we were talking about Nosferatu, which we've done on this channel. It's out on this channel as well, because we were talking about the structure of horror. This may have been one of the last conversations before you had come on board, Doug, on the channel. But we were talking about the structure of horror and how one of its essential elements is not a call to adventure, but a warning that goes unheeded.
Oh, interesting.
So you have that in horror, and so when we got to that point in Alien, so in this case we have a call to adventure. You say, here's the warning, we got to go out and we're under an obligation to go investigate this. But then we find out that this is not a warning. It's in fact, it's not a SOS. It is in fact a warning. That fits right into the horror trope. Now, it's a little bit different because you're right that it starts off as if it's a call to adventure, but then we find out that it's going to be a warning. So it's not exactly a warning that goes unheeded. In a lot of horror, here's the warning the character receives. Don't go into the forest, or whatever.
I'm going to go anyway.
Where things eat you, and somebody, the warning goes unheeded. That's not this case. It is a warning disguised as a call to adventure.
Yes. I think that's brilliantly said, because it is a call in the sense it's a literal call. It's an acoustical beacon, I think they say, and it wakes up the crew. And there's kind of a fun. I don't know why I enjoy it so much. Them waking up and getting in the cockpit and checking out and kind of realizing they're not. That's not our system.
Because they think they're arriving at Earth. Oh, we're woke up because we're headed toward Earth.
Right. So it's just a fun kind of, sleepy astronauts dressed as truckers, kind of getting acclimated to what's going on. And they realize they're in the middle. They're halfway home. They're in the middle of space, and Mother has woke them up. So that is a call to adventure in that sense. But Heath, that's a good point. It is also, it comes in the form of a warning that is, I would say, a disguised warning, because at first they say, we don't know. It's just intelligent life. We're obligated to investigate.
Potentially intelligent life, so we're obligated to investigate.
Right. Yeah, Tomocrat. I know exactly what he's doing because they sing that dialogue. I know that.
And that's please funny, do, man. Gary says, please do hit the thumbs up button if you are here with us. Please do that. Yes.
So you do get an establishment of these structural elements right off the bat in the film. Ash is disguised. There is no alien yet. This is simply a what's going on type of moment. And there is, I guess more of it is set up at this point, because we're getting to know the characters. We understand that Parker and Brent are kind of the engineers. They're a little disgruntled. It has these working class tones to it.
Right.
They want more shares. They don't, but they're contracted to go investigate this. But there is, I would say, a sense of a threshold. There's no threshold guardian, I don't think, in this necessarily, but there is a sense of a threshold later when they go from the ship out onto the alien surface. Joseph Campbell is very clear that what is past the threshold guardian, he actually says alien land is one of the, he says desert, sea, jungle, alien land. It's the unknown wilderness. And this definitely has some of that, where the hero, you have Dallas, Lambert, and Kane, who go into this alien land, into the unknown. That is classic hero's journey type of moment. So, but also, how about the landing? Even the landing has consequences in this film.
Right, and I was hearing somebody talk about how important and meaningful the landing of the craft on that planet is, because often in sci-fi you approach the planet and then you land, and the next scene is okay, we've landed, we're flying into the planet, the next one this landing has a lot of meaning.
Yeah, man, they take their time with it too. Like it's a slow landing. The atmosphere, it's not like Star Trek, like you said, where you just land the shuttlecraft and you get out and everything's fine. They couldn't find good terrain. The outside weather is completely hostile. And even to this day, when I watch Alien, I'm like, God, I would not want to be out there, man. It literally looks like silica just flinging around in huge gusts. And when they land it, they're like lurching and things, their instrumentation is catching on fire. I mean, it's an ordeal just to land. And the weight of that craft really comes across too. And that is a subversion of an expectation. Heath, I think you're, like you said, from the Star Trek landing or the Star Wars landing where it's never a problem.
What about, I don't know where to put this in.
Go
ahead. Wait, where are we?
Weyland-Yutani represents the cult of deception. 100%. They're the homegrown cultural element that is misdirecting the heroine and really the whole crew in this case. They represent the cult of deception, Weyland-Yutani.
Okay, so I was actually thinking that we could look at excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The several different of the different archetypes that you talk about in the Heroine's Labyrinth and what they are. So let me put this down. So cult of deception is the company.
Right. It's a more widespread system of deception that the heroine is bumping into but unaware of, and it usually misdirects or redirects the heroine, misleads the heroine, and in the book I mentioned the presence of an ulterior motive, and that is exactly what is behind this. The presence of an ulterior motive. Weyland-Yutani wants to get their hands on this organism. The way it's written is the company is aware of this, and they're sending them out to go retrieve it because they know there's an organism there. I did read up on the backstory. I can't remember how they knew about it beforehand. I forgot. If anyone in the chat remembers, let me know. But I don't remember how the company found out about the organism, but they did know about it.
Well, yeah, I don't think it's explained in the context. Maybe
it's not explained in the movie.
In the movie, that's not said.
Yeah,
right. And
so great question, Robert. But yeah, that is the native culture's cult of deception there. And then Ash is absolutely the masked Minotaur. He's a member of the native culture. He's an apex social apex character in the fact that he's a science officer. The apex level here is minimal, but he is given command of the ship, or Dallas defers decisions to him at some point, big decisions. He defers to Ash. He is disguised, and in this case, and the idea of the Minotaur is that they're half and half. They're half man, half beast, or in this case, machine. So it's a perfect hybrid. He's half human, a human half, and then a machine inner half. And the machine inner half is the part that wins out. He does not have compassion. There's that creepy scene right before Cain dies where Ash is like at the table and then he kind of looks over at Cain and is examining him across the table. I always hate that scene because I'm like, he knows what's going to happen to this guy. And he's just like, let's see, that's interesting. So he is not, there's the human empathy is absolutely missing. And that's part of Ash's downfall as a character.
Okay. I don't know where to ask this question, but it seems really important to all of things. Let's go ahead and ask this now because we're not going like scene by scene or something like that. But what is the importance from our analytical perspective of these characters having been written as gender neutral? So Ripley could have been cast as a man, potentially, to our understanding of this as a heroine's journey story. Like, so, I mean, I asked that because, like, if we say that and we got all the horror themes, then we end up with these elements. But then Ripley could have been a man. Now, that's not that's not necessarily a problem because we've said that the masculine embodied can undergo the heroine's journey. We've talked about that with Captain Kirk, so that wouldn't necessarily be a problem. But this film, it seems like, would be less iconic if Ripley were cast as a man.
I agree.
So what does that mean? That you write this script kind of like, okay, we don't know who's a man and who's a woman. Let's come up with this. How do we account for the fact that it was written kind of gender neutral?
Well, I would say that what's fascinating is even more so. I would say in some ways it's even more proof that the structure lent itself to a female. Because here's an example where the script doesn't tell you what it is, but the structure itself, the people making the film zeroed in, and for whatever reason, they're like, it's got to be female centric. It's going to be Ripley. Even though the script didn't say it was a woman, even though the script was recommended to leave Ripley as a man, somehow through the course of the structure and the manifestation of the story, Ripley emerges anyway. So it's almost as if on an archetypal level, the creators understood this is a woman's story because it wasn't written for a woman, and yet she got there anyway. So to me, it's
and then it worked so well once it was done.
And once it was done, it was like, it became iconic. And her next film is arguably even more iconic. You know, it's hard to compare the two because they're so different, but both films stand on their own as classics in their own way and with their own style.
So you think the hypothesis then would be that this story was conceived and written.
So I'll give you a few examples of stories that I think would have been better with a female, for example, because they fit the Heroine's Labyrinth, and the films were kind of so-so. The Truman Show, huge cult of deception. There's the Labyrinth and all this, and I was like, this movie might have really worked if it was a female lead because it's so perfectly suited to the Labyrinth. And for whatever reason, the Truman Show is just kind of okay. I think Jim Carrey carries it, but it's just an okay film. But it might have this. What's that?
He's got his big following who comes out for
totally. But I think the story would have been better served possibly by a female lead. And then one that is kind of in the middle, and I'm not saying it would have been a better movie because I actually love the film, love it as is. But I think a remake, with all the gender swapping they do, which seems sometimes fruitless or misfired. Total Recall. I wonder if Total Recall would be cool with a female lead because it fits so much of the Heroine's Labyrinth. I wonder if it would work with a female lead in a way that comes through in a whole different light.
Well, that's fascinating. It's been a while since I've seen, not as long since I've seen Alien, but it's been a while since I've watched Total Recall too. I watched it a long time ago and remembered basically nothing of it. And then I watched it again, but it's been a few years. But long before I thought about any of this. That's fascinating because that's such an iconic masculine role too with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Right. Well, because it's masculinized. He becomes a spy and it's all guns and shooting and running and so. But you could do that. I think if you put a woman in the lead, the story would start to make its own subtle changes. The structure would stay the same, but I think the story would have a different feel to it. It would work in a different way. And I think that's what happened with Alien. You had the structure there, and either by luck or brilliance, they landed on Sigourney Weaver. They landed on Ripley. They made her a woman, and now no one has forgotten this film. It did something extra that possibly, if it was a male lead, that may not have hit that high note.
Okay, all right, okay. Well, that does kind of answer my question then. That we had the story that came out. And then if our hypothesis is that these archetypes are something subconscious, they were like, all right, let's just write this story. We'll just call them kind of gender neutral names. And here's what's going on. But by the time you get into making the movie and the film and really feeling it out, that you're like, okay, Ripley needs to be a woman. And then it works because there was something innate about that connected with this particular type of story. And it worked.
It worked it hit the high note.
All right. That's fascinating.
They did that thing that you dream of if you're a filmmaker and an actress and an actor. And all the people involved in this, they all elevated. They made this great film. And because I watched this a couple weeks ago and we were going to talk about Alien, and I rewatched it again last night, and it doesn't get old. I just love it. There's only maybe 2 or 3 things that really betray the film, or I should say betray the film, but where I'm like, oh, that effect that could be cleaned up a little bit. Like the explosion at the end of the film is kind of 70s. Like when the alien goes across the table after coming out of Kane is a little, but other than those real minor issues, this film holds up so well. So
there's what somebody else had talked about on YouTube. Because when I was watching, I was like, okay, that was bad. They shouldn't have done that. But somebody on YouTube called it the worst jump cut in all of cinema.
In Alien?
Yeah.
Which one?
Which was the scene, and I completely saw it too, when they're working with the head of Ash, and it's clearly a puppet, and then there's a jump cut, and then it's Ian Holm's head under through the table.
Yeah.
But, right. They should never, I don't know how that got through. They should never have had that. They needed to be working with the puppet head and then cut to somebody else, cut away, like making a face or something, and then cut back and have Ian Holm under the table with the head.
Yeah.
But they try to do it in one, and it's a jump cut, and that did not work. But I watched. Somebody asked which one I watched. So I think I watched I'm pretty sure. I'm about 90% sure that I watched the theatrical release this weekend. So I watched the
theatrical release as well. I'm actually not a fan of the director's cut. I don't hate it, but it does mess up the rhythm of the film. Let's put it this way: it works perfectly theatrical, and it's good director's cut. I was actually amazed that they, Dallas being cocooned, that all of that was there at the beginning that comes out in Aliens. But I thought they were all great cuts. All the cuts that they did, except one. There's one I wish they would have kept in. That scene where Brent goes after Jonesy, and you hear the chains jangling with the water dripping down. There's one scene where the alien is in the chains, and you barely recognize it because you've never seen it before. That's why they cut it, is because your first glimpse of the alien is in disguise, kind of hidden in the chains. So they cut it. But every time I see that scene now, I'm like, oh, I want that scene there. I want to see I want to be able to spot the alien hidden in the biomechanics.
Sable says for $5, in spite of the dodgy head, Alien is one of those elusive horror films that maintains its suspense and impact, no matter how many viewings you give it. Right. I mean, I agree. I completely agree. I mean, the Ash's head jump cut is bad. Like I said, some of the spaceships, are models. I'm enjoying them for that reason because they're physical. But we got some model elements of that. But the movie completely still works in spite of all of that. Right. I mean, I was still intense in the horror element of this as I was sitting right here watching on the computer screen right here. So it's completely still working.
And what's interesting is, did you know that Ash was actually his name in the early script was Mother 6000? That he was an obvious. So what's interesting to me is watching the Heroine's Labyrinth go from this rudimentary thing into a perfect Heroine's Labyrinth as they developed it. But Mother 6000 was not disguised in the original script. Ash's name was Mother 6000.
That was Ash's name. Huh? That was Ash's name. Huh?
That was Ash's name, Mother 6000. And they changed it to Ash and then made the computer Mother. Wait, did we answer Sable's question?
Sable said, in spite of the dodgy head, Alien is one of those elusive horror films that maintains its suspense and impact no matter how many viewings you give it. And I was agreeing with that.
Totally correct.
And I was, and BGD says that this was state of the art at the time. Yeah. And I'm only saying that in retrospect.
Right.
But like in retrospect, the Star Destroyer in the original Star Wars, I feel like the pass over the Star Destroyer holds up much better than the pass over the Nostradamus.
It does.
So in retrospect, but yeah, right. We're talking about at the time, still state of the art. I'm just talking about in retrospect. That's how I was feeling watching it, but I was still appreciating it. I mean, I was still completely on.
Yeah, it's not a bad enough effect to really jar me out of the film. It's just kind of like a mild observation, like, oh yeah, I can kind of tell that's a model, and then moving on. You know, like it's not invasive to me.
It's not invasive, and because I'm still there with what it's trying to do as an art form. I'm there with what it's trying to do.
You know what I watched the other day that the visual effects did jar me, and I was like, oof, was a Clash of the Titans. Love the movie. Love the movie. But while I was watching, I was like, oh man, some of these effects are rough. Like they're not holding up well. So Alien, and by the way, Clash of the Titans came out in 1981, I think 1981. So it came out after this movie. So that just is a testament still to how good they did, despite maybe a few minor imperfections there. But yeah, I don't know if you guys have seen Clash of the Titans recently, the old one, but it's those visual effects are not aging well.
2010, but that's not right.
That's the remake.
That's the
remake. I think it's 1981. It's got a great soundtrack, though. I love that soundtrack.
81. Yep, June 12th, 1981.
Okay, so that came out several years later, and those visual effects fail to hold up, whereas this mostly holds up.
And hey, Retro Nerd Girl.
Yeah, Retro Nerd Girl's here.
And Retro, I messaged you through X, Twitter. I just messaged you, so I'll check my messages after this. But I did. If you're here watching, I just messaged you, so check your messages, please.
So one thing that's probably worth discussing is the alien itself.
Okay.
Part of the issue that they were having with one cool thing for all you people out there that want to write scripts, to give you some hope and some inspiration, because I love this. The more I read about stories in the background, like how they developed, where they came from, I'm always amazed at how the script gets picked up. It's not what you think. Like I always imagine some guy picking up my script, going page by page, being like, this is airtight. This is brilliant. No. Dude, this guy, Dan O'Bannon, wrote basically Dark Star, but scary. And the only reason the studio had this like sitting anywhere near them to greenlight after Star Wars, the guy goes, there's this script, there's one great scene. One great scene. That's the only thing good about the script. And the scene was the alien, the chest burster scene. So it's amazing that these Hollywood execs, I know they get a lot of crap these days and they deserve plenty of it. But the good ones, it's interesting that they know what will work. That they took a look at that script and they said the whole script's worthless except for one scene. So that was kind of the reputation of the script in the mid 70s. It's a great script it's an okay script with one great scene, the chest burster scene. So when it got picked up, they said you need to develop this scene right here. And the big question was, how do we get the alien onto the ship? That was a big thing. How do we get an alien on the ship without the crew knowing? And they didn't want it to just be, it sneaks in through the door, while they're out there. So they had to encounter this biological thing and get it back on in secret. That was kind of the idea. And so the idea of creating an alien in multiple stages emerged. And now I think most people would agree, the biology, the life cycle of this alien species is one of the most memorable ever created. From the egg to the face hugger to the chest burster to the xenomorph and then eventually the queen alien. There's a lot of versions of it, and yet it doesn't seem to be disruptive or too busy or too much. It works beautifully. And I will say the face hugger in Alien looks the best it's ever looked in any film. Where it's almost like that, got that opalescent, skin with the silica, and then when they flip it over, it's got like I think they use oysters and stuff like that to like map it out. The alien, the face hugger in this one is the best they've ever done.
Yeah. So when we're talking about, okay, we'll talk about Geiger in a moment. Retro Girl we're talking about, but okay. So yeah. So we've got the alien who comes on board. and Ripley's making the right choices. No, nobody is Ripley's making the right choices, but nobody, and we've talked about this as well. That's like you're showing you don't want to show one side with, oh, this is obviously right, and we're showing this is obviously wrong. Okay, Ripley's making some right choices, but you also understand the other side choices. Then you realize that some of the choices, that the Ash's choice is being made because he's compromised and he's Raylan and stuff like that. But on the other hand, I was under orders. They said, open it. I opened it.
Well, I really appreciate Sigourney Weaver's performance in the moment where, Dallas and Lambert haul Kane back, which, if you look at the distance they had to travel in that harsh environment, that is not easy. They hauled him back. He's got this thing attached to his face. He's the captain of the ship. He's like, open this door. I love the way she handled it. She's like, no, she's not. She's very composed when she does it. She explains herself. Like, she handles it perfectly. It's not like she goes, no. And remember like Admiral Holdo in The Last Jedi, she would just give orders and it didn't make sense. She wouldn't explain herself. Ripley's like, no, if we bring it on, there's a danger to everybody. Like, she handles it. She tells them exactly why. She's composed. She doesn't raise her voice to escalate the confrontation. She keeps herself calm. She handles herself perfectly. So, and because of the perfect way she behaves as a leader, it's such a punch in the gut when Ash is like, psst, I'm letting him in. Just completely sidesteps her. It's so frustrating to watch.
So it's Giger. Sable is always on the pronunciation, so it's Giger.
Yeah, I have a problem with saying Geiger, even though I know it's Giger.
Okay, it's Giger. Okay.
So interesting backstory. Dan O'Bannon met Giger. Yeah, Giger. I just said I would. In I think 1975. In this bizarre Dune project that never happened. Adam Jodorowsky went over to France. They bought the rights to Frank Herbert's Dune. They were super excited about it. Mick Jagger was going to be cast. Salvador Dali was going to be cast. It would have been the most bizarre film in history. And they wanted Dan O'Bannon to come out there and help him with the script. So this was like his big moment. In fact, he sold everything he had. He moved to France. He's like, I made it big. I'm going to write the script to Dune. I mean, wouldn't we all think that we did it? He gets out there and they're partying. They're like smoking weed, like hanging out. And he meets Jodorowsky hires a couple of artists to design Arrakis. He wanted a real unique look. So he hired H.R. Giger. He goes, I want you to design Arrakis, the architecture. And of course, you can auto-populate H.R. Giger's artwork in your head of what Arrakis would have looked like. And so while they were there, they met. And after a couple months of partying and $2 million blown, studio says, all right, guys, we're not doing Dune. The party's over. And they canceled the whole project. So O'Bannon had to come back, broke, sleeping on sleeping on someone's sofa, basically, having nothing. He's like, I blew it. I screwed up. And then Star Wars came out. They're like, we want Alien. He's like, He remembered H.R. Giger from the Dune project. And he goes, will you design an alien? And Giger, of course, was like, yes. I will. And I think everyone has seen the original design. It's not as suggestive. It is like overt. It is like a head with like a penis coming out, and like there's like female genitalia. The egg wasn't supposed, how it's like an X and it folds out in 4 quadrants.
Right.
It was originally a vagina, and it was supposed to be born almost that. And people literally had to rein him in. They're like, look, you're a genius, but we can't do it like that overtly.
On the other hand, I respect that. I only respect that because like I often have said on the shows and different live streams that I write very violent things, and then people have to rein me in. So I'm okay with the person who's like, all right, here's where we're going. Here's what you asked me. Here's what I came up with. And then people have, okay, we're gonna step that back, a few steps. So all right, I'm fine with that.
And wouldn't you say that in this case it was wisely done?
Well, right, because I've got notes on here to talk about birth and pregnancy and genitalia and all of that, because a lot of people, especially on YouTube, want to talk about that.
Yeah.
So I mean, why not? We can too. But yeah, I mean, I would say probably in that case, reeling it back and not making it, even though some of it is rather overt, but not making it just over the top was a good call.
Right. So one thing I would like to point out, and while I was studying Poisoned Apples, which was one of the main themes in heroine-centric stories, I was becoming kind of enamored and fascinated with Poisoned Apples because I realized as an archetype, it does have so many expressions. It's something that appears benign or even pleasing at times. It is often delivered by the masked minotaur. In this film, indirectly, it's delivered by the masked minotaur. In Aliens, it's directly delivered by the masked minotaur. But the face hugger is one of the most aggressive examples of what a poisoned apple does. It bypasses the heroine's free will. It bypasses her ability to fight back in many cases. It is delivered with bad intent, and it is something internal. It is bizarre how often this happens. The internal, this idea of, the name of the chapter in my book is By the Pricking of My Thumb. This idea of something coming into your body, whether it's a syringe, a needle, like the needle from Sleeping Beauty, or the sewing in the eyes of Coraline, the buttons over your eyes. But this idea of stepping on the nail in Quiet Place, it is amazing how often this puncture occurs to heroines. It's uneffing believable. And so here again, we have, and it is, by the way, not accidental. I do think there are archetypal overtones to the intercourse, to sex with this, because it is something that also it's usually it changes the condition of the heroine, usually knocks her unconscious or something else. And here the face hugger, so I call it, as in the book, even I get more into it, symbolic rape. You see it a lot in mythology, Greek mythology all the time. Greek gods showing up in disguise.
Which is, as has been, I believe Tomocrat brought this up, is explicitly what this is supposed to be in this film.
Absolutely correct. So all of the symbolism of what an apple does to a heroine, this one comes out and just says it's actual rape. And they designed it this way to be able to work on a man. And that's why they wanted it to be a man who gets affected first, because it's a subversion of the theme in that sense. So the face hugger, it bypasses your ability to fight back. It renders you unconscious. It's the perfect poisoned apple. It does something internal, and it is delivered by the masked minotaur. So it literally fits and it shows up initially in a benign way. Cain sees this, that looks like eggs or something. I think he says, it's like, there's a clue, buddy. So he goes in there and he looks benign. He's kind of fascinated by it. He's like, wait, there's life. And this benign, and of course he looks stupid reaching over it. But it drives me nuts. It's even worse in Prometheus. But
somebody do a YouTube video on that. I don't know where they got this clip or something like this. And the person says something like, "For the sake of science, I will put my face in it." And he goes, yes. So for science, I'm going to go stick my face in that. Okay.
Well done, sir. But yeah, it is an overt poisoned apple, the face hugger in this case. Cain, in the name of science, leans over that egg and it goes right through his helmet and gets him in. It immediately changes the conscious state of Cain in this case, and you see the heroine on her back is usually the follow-up image. You think of Snow White, Sleeping Beauty, Beatrix Kiddo in the casket. So you get this imagery, and it stays intact. In this case with Cain, with the it's forced insemination is what it is.
So Ellen Burton for $10. Thank you very much, Alan. Alan says, from a bohemian lifestyle to a space alien love.
That is more correct than you think. I left some up, but they were doing LSD. I mean, they were partying pretty hard in Paris, and apparently, who's the guy who plays Bill in Kill Bill? Carradine, what's his name? He plays Bill. He was a part of this. Botched. He was one of the actors that showed up.
Oh, David Carradine. Oh, that's David Carradine.
Yeah. Him.
Oh.
He was, when they were in Paris partying on the Dune project. Carradine would come in and get really high with them, and they would plan this stuff out. So it is true that those psychedelic drugs dig up those archetypal things sometimes, and that seems to have been partly the case here. But yeah, David Carradine was a part of that party, that Paris party. That's okay, Bacon. We know that it was a mistake.
I was trying to. Well, where do we go from here?
Well, I want to point out there is a second poisoned apple, more direct, and it's bizarre because it's amazing how these things manifest. Sometimes it's so bizarre in the film, and then when I look at it archetypally, I'm like, oh my god. I wonder if the bizarreness is the accidental need to fit the archetype. In the so we'll just, since we're talking about it, I'll talk about it now. Ash is unmasked. There's the unmasking of Ash. He's no longer the science officer. He is the accomplice of not only Mother, but the whole cult of deception. Wayland Yutani, he's the agent on board. And he's unmasked. Ripley calls him out. She's pissed at him, and she storms out of the inner sanctum, which is compromised by the masked Minotaur. Mother, that inner sanctum where there's breathing sounds. It's the most comforting place. So I think, believe it or not, I think it fits a couple different things.
Sable asked for $2, which I think is what Doug's about to respond to. What?
So archetypally speaking, I would say the ultimate inner sanctum of the ship is Mother. That chamber. It's the only part of the ship that's like pretty and not industrial. It's white. It's pleasant. There's the white noise of breathing in the background to give you a sense that Mother is a person. The name of the computer there is Mother. I also do think this doubles as a chamber of knowledge. It's one of the few areas that the heroine goes into where there is a chamber guardian facing her, and it's the computer in this case. And and this also leads to a broken truce. The broken truce is the second Mother answers that question. Recovery of the organism, priority 1, crew expendable. Broken truce. Ripley's not playing with them anymore. It's over. She gets, and then that's when she sits back. And there's that great camera shot. Whereas she sits back in shock, Ash is right there now. He somehow so the inner sanctum is compromised by the masked Minotaur, which is classic. And there's a confrontation that takes place here, and it gets a little creepy because she actually storms out, and then Ash traps her. Right. So this is becoming a problem for our heroine. The masked Minotaur is going to not allow her to tell the rest of the crew. What does Ash do? He takes her, he flings her. Ripley, in classic poisoned apple sense, she's unconscious. She's laying flat. He rolls up a magazine, and where does he put it?
Her mouth.
Right over her mouth.
A pornographic magazine.
It's a porno. Right, it's a pornographic magazine. But he puts it right over her mouth, which is right where you would expect to put. So he's not going to kill her or break her neck. And there's some logic to what he's doing, by the way. And this is the whole thing. The poisoned apple is usually not an overt attempt to kill. And this fits that in the sense that he could have just snapped her neck, no problem. But then the crew would know. So he's got to kill her in a way that looks like it could have happened without him doing it. So he rolls up this thing, and as she's holding her down, he's trying to put this in her mouth. It's totally bizarre. Yeah, it's totally a violation of her space, but it's the same way that the face hugger attacks. Exactly, it's the same thing. And this one is delivered by the masked Minotaur, as the archetype would expect. And she's only brought out of it because the rest of the crew comes in and witnesses, and Parker comes to her aid there and really really physically assaults Ash and gets him off of her.
So I'll get your opinion on this. Maybe this is a good time for this, because I was trying to come up with some explanation of the different colors, but I didn't quite have it. Maybe you have more information on that, because when you think about the starship, the tugboat and whether we're talking about the whole thing that we're on when we're on the starship, most of it is very industrial.
Very.
That's also kind of like biomechanical, where, like you're saying, the alien can hide. Like you've got this, and you could also even say like the ribbed corridors, labyrinth-like, but with like the ribs thing. So you have like, a vaginal look to it and things like that. So that's a lot of these corridors and a lot of that spaceship. But then occasionally on that spaceship, they go to places that look very different. Like the place where they wake up from is pure white. I mean, that does not look like other places of that starship. That's a very different place with a different color palette, different scheme, different look. The place where they go to with Mother, it's not white. It's almost white, but it's
like off-white, cream,
it's a tan, right? So it's not like the blaring white of the place where they wake up in. There's some other place that's white. So I was trying to understand the symbology of that and the color scheme.
Well, if I had to guess, and again, I am thinking, if the inner sanctum is Mother, and it's the one like very safe place, it feels like in there, it's comfortable. And then you have the pods are that's like, it makes me think of like you think of Mother and babies sleeping.
Well, right. Yes. That place is very sterile, very medical, birth-like.
Yes.
So that's white. That's why I think you're in that area. I think it had been brought up before. I see that Sable has a super chat balloon. But before that, the Mother's area, is supposed to be womb-like. Now, but that's off-white. It's not just white, but you still have to go in. But it's not the white. But then a lot of other places are very mechanical.
See, my thought on that is it underscores the presence of home. Home is battleground. The idea of the inner, the idea that you're in a safe place. If it was all industrial, then you're just in the factory warehouse at the end of Terminator, right? This has these soothing, safe places sprinkled throughout. And with the mother and you think of the infant like in a crib, almost swaddled. I think it underscores the place that the idea that this is home and this is a place of safety also, that there's these kind of places as well. It really underscores that sense of safety. And even the idea that they named the computer Mother. Like you would imagine like if this movie was made today, it would be a female voice talking and not the beep, beep, beep. They have that real weird. I love it though. I love it. The sound.
All right, yeah, you got to go to the keyboard and you get some type back. Yeah,
I love the sound of it. But you would imagine that if they could do it again, they'd probably have her speak.
You would just talk to it, and it would.
So, because she speaks later, you now have 5 minutes to reach minimum safe distance. So they have the precedent. They just didn't do it inside this inner sanctum. But I do think it underscores the idea of safety and comfort, which you only otherwise find at home.
The medical bay is white.
Medical bay is the other one, yeah.
Is white. Yeah, that was the other one. And then also, but even when they're having lunch or dinner, when they're having their meals.
Yeah, all the home. Those are all home touches.
Right. They're in another white environment. Like during the chest burster, I mean, you got the first meal early in the show, but then we're in the movie, but then you have the second meal, which leads right into the chest burster scene when you are also in a white environment.
Again, it's making me think that white represents the safety of home, the familiarity of home.
Because you don't have that. Like I was just thinking, it occurred to me like the Matrix ship,
all industrial.
That's that's all industrial. You do go into a white environment when they're docking, and I actually had wondered, what is that white environment when they were docking with the ship?
Zion?
You're docking with Zion? Right, yeah. But that was like you're watching people inside a matrix, not the matrix, but you're watching people inside, because all of a sudden that's a very clean white environment. But that's the only time you see that. On Morpheus's ship, it's all industrial. And then when you go, it's all industrial. So that's very different. You have a lot of similar kinds of industrial kinds of themes on the Nostromo, but there are a few places where they go on that ship where you're in a very clean white kind of environment.
Yeah, and I would say the more I think about it, the white gives comfort in this film. The comfort of Mother in the inner sanctum, the comfort of sleep, deep sleep in the hyperspace pods, the comfort and community of eating a meal together. They have like Tupperware there. They're like pouring cereal and drinking coffee. Like, it's the only thing good on this ship. At one point, Dallas says, "And I'm buying."
I'm buying, right?
Yeah, but this is all familiar. That's what you do with your work buddies, right? We're going out. It's on me, whatever. So those are the comforting areas of the ship. And to me, it makes sense archetypally because it underscores that this is home turf. This is the place that we call home here. And there are places that things like home manifest themselves on the ship, which I do think makes the aliens scarier. They're not just running around in a factory. It's in their home.
Sable says for $5, thank you very much, Sable. Sable says, the scene where Ash assaults Ripley, which we were just talking about a moment ago, and then is dismembered by Parker, actually caused one of the ushers to pass out in the theater of the premiere. Oh,
really? I had not heard that.
That's pretty brutal. When Ash gets beaten up, that's a pretty brutal scene.
It is. It takes his head off.
You're talking about body horror elements of this. That's one of those where you're getting that, and he's head down his back, but he's still kind of working and things like that. That's what you're looking at there.
Well, I always kind of keep an eye on my kids because they're pretty young, but I love showing them these movies. I'm like, these are classics, kids. My youngest did have a reaction to that scene. It was more of a disgust reaction, like that, kind of like because Ash is like moving around without his head, so it's a disturbing image, and him spinning around, spitting out all that milky fluid is pretty disturbing. The head's hanging off the back,
right?
Almost like a hood. So it's very disturbing image. And then of course she tortures. Parker torches this guy.
Yeah,
melts his face off.
You've got all that white element too. And I watched probably about 6 hours worth of commentary after this. When I watched the movie, and then I watched about 6 hours worth of stuff on YouTube after this. And of course, the white representation of seminal fluid.
I did not think of it like that.
And I didn't originally think of it like that either. But a lot of people are right. The milk drinking, and because but I didn't think of it originally like that. But
he does drink a lot of milk. I did notice that.
But then right when he's like spraying all of the white fluid and then is covered in it and stuff like that, I suppose you could go that way, because they were talking about a contrast of white and red.
Well, you can make the case that, so white, we said, is the comfort of home, right? Or that's one working theory.
Right. Yeah.
And Mother is part of that. And this would be Mother's milk. Because Ash is with Mother in this. This is like the corrupt mother, the evil mother in a sense. So there is a little tie in there, because it is like the home space, but the inner sanctum is compromised in this story. Mother is not the good guy.
Yeah. He has, right. Ash has the white drop going down the side of his face, right? Yes. But see, what I would say here, BGD says, I think the white blood is actually symbolic of the android's lack of humanity. Yes, I agree with that. I agree with that. But I guess the question would be why? Because
why not blue?
Why not blue? Why not green? Why not black? Is there some reason why it's white? And so that has the sexual connotations.
Well,
there.
I think the sexual connotation is there, I guess, but it's always struck me as more milk-like than seminal fluid.
Well, it's milk-like, but on the other hand, people were talking about the Nostramos with its big structure.
Yeah.
And it's got all these things on top, but then on the bottom, it's got all of these half orbs, which are breast-like.
Yeah, I knew. Yeah.
And so that there could be some kind of connection between the breast-like nature of the ship and the
ship is mother
and being mother, right? Yeah, and the mother has these mammary organs, and then the ash is dependent upon milk and all of that.
Mother is a machine, and Ash is a machine. So Ash is like her child on board. Her agent on board would be Ash. Which again, that's actually interesting. You bring up the the breast-like component of the ship. That would coincide with the milk image. Or the milk symbolism with Ash. I mean, I don't know. I don't have a better answer. I think that mother, home, comfort, milk, all being compromised, by the way. That's part of the Heroine's Labyrinth issue, is that these comforting, safe places are compromised. That theme would fit.
Well, I mean, that's what
the last Minotaur needs his mother's milk. Yeah, he's in concert, with mother in this.
No, BGD asked, I guess, where I would go too. BGD,
that's true too.
There's plenty of sexual symbolism in the Alien franchise and in this movie too, right? Unfortunately, that doesn't prevent people from over-sexualizing its imagery beyond reason. So I wonder about that too.
See, in my view, the sexual symbolism of the white fluid in Ash just doesn't make as much sense, I guess, is my issue. Is he's not that. Like, that's not necessarily his role. And then we could also tie this in also with the alien blood. The alien blood is acid.
But and it's yellow.
And it's yellow, right. Yellowish green, yeah. To me, the blood of the poisoned apple itself might be a little bit more important in the sense of a sexual connotation, because it is symbolic rape manifest, the face huggers. So whereas Ash is not. Ash is more of the inhuman. That's the issue with the Minotaur. The Minotaur is half human, half animal, or in this case, machine. And then it's the inhuman side that wins out. That's the issue with the masked Minotaur. So I like the milk symbolism because that ties into Mother, who is the also compromised overseer of the ship. Mother. When you hear the word mother, you think of comfort, and you think of your mom, and that's supposed to be a good. The name itself is comforting,
Well, yeah. So I don't know. I guess I would want to hear more of that from people involved because of
creators.
What he is saying. Because, like, okay, obviously, I would say obviously it's there. Okay, the symbology is there, the symbolism is there, but then at what point is it being over analyzed? Like even like one thing I was talking about, like when that alien that's like in the chair, they show up early.
The space jockey.
Yeah, the space jockey, right? Who's in that chair, and like how much do we need to read into phallic symbolism about what he's looking into? because some people were talking about like, okay, so now we've got this, and he's looking at this phallic symbol, and he's in a circular womb-like area, and we're supposed to interpret whether it's a gun or whether it's a telescope, or whatever he's looking into. We don't really know, but we got this phallic-like symbol. Like, is that supposed to be something that's penetrating a womb, and he's the embryo in the womb? Or is that going too far with our analysis in this area?
Right. So to me, it always, for the symbolism to work there, it should make some kind of deep like a primordial logic. The primordial or the primal logic of milk makes more sense to me with ash than the symbolism of seminal fluid. Ash is by nature inhuman, inorganic, incapable of reproduction. He's the opposite of that in a sense. Yeah. The aliens are not. They're organic. So anyway, the fact that they're using the symbolism of mother and sanctuary and the cradle and the hypersleep pods and all of that lends itself to more of this is a safe place. This is mother. This is where we care for you. But it's not. It's compromised. So to me, the symbolism works more along the milk line. So I guess to answer your question though is it could be all these other things, the space jockey, the telescope. Right. But is there a primal logic to that symbolism? If there isn't, then maybe it's not there. Like you said, maybe we're reading into it that something that isn't there.
I mean, or it could be a guy drawing phalluses around everywhere for no reason. I mean,
right. But even then, the primal logic should be embedded into it from the person drawing it.
You would. That's our hypothesis.
Primal imprint left over there that translates into the picture. If it's, and that may not have been there, it might not be there, or it might. Maybe there is a good theory on that we just haven't heard yet. That are like, oh my God, that's it.
Sable for $10. Thank you very much. Sable says, in this film specifically, I would say that the white blood represents both Ash's role as the medical white room, white robe. Okay, you're right. That does carry the birthing room, the white. That does carry over the white, and his lack of emotion. His blood is colorless.
That's actually a very good comment, because I was going to say earlier, kind of the opposite of what Sable is, or the compliment is that if you made it a color like blue or green, it's more like alien blood. Like Spock's blood is green, right? Klingon blood is purple.
The red, Sable says that next. The red blood of human. You can't be you inhuman, whatever, because Spock's green.
Well, the idea blood has a color is kind of in our head. So when we make alien blood, we give it a color because blood has a color, which that's what I was going to say. And that would support what Sable is saying. If you want something that blood isn't a color, go the opposite way, black or white.
A colorless blood would either be black or, if it's not transparent, it would need to be black or white.
Right. Black, gray, or white would be a non-color, an inorganic blood color. So, and then at that point, if you have to choose between the three, which makes the most sense, and Sable just made a sense for the idea of the sterility of him emotionally, the sterility of like a hospital. In fact, think of that sterility. It's the opposite of insemination. The sterility, I think, that's what I was trying to say earlier, is sterility makes more sense to me than fertility with Ash.
That's a great point. The contrast of sterility versus fertility.
Transparent would also work. Yeah. So you'd have black,
right,
gray, transparent, or white. So those would be blood cut like a gel, like a transparent gel. Those would all work. But obviously the creators chose one, and we're trying to figure out of those four which makes the most sense, or why they chose the one they did. Heath is suggesting, and I agree, that it's not an accident. there is something there.
There's something there, right? Yeah. So why? But it depends on whether you're talking about color or pigment, right? Yeah, because white is colorless in pigment. Black is the presence of all colors and pigment.
Colors.
But as Drudenfuzz says, when you're talking about light, black is colorlessness because that's the lack of all light, whereas white is the presence of all light. So those are reversed when you're talking about light and pigment.
Well, but also realize in Prometheus, they use black. Remember that black fluid?
Well,
they reintroduced.
I have seen Prometheus, and I have a friend who really, really loves it. And I have seen it, and I don't remember anything about it, but I've
never heard really, really loves in front of it, but it's okay. There's things I like about it. It's worth seeing. Like if you like the Aliens franchise, you should watch it. But just be aware, you'll probably be disappointed, and some people can't stand it.
No, I know, but then I know there's a small segment of people who really love it, and I've got a friend who's in on that segment. But I don't think you can use anything that's in Prometheus to interpret Alien, like we're doing here. I don't think
that's true. But I was trying to think of a black blood, and that was the first thing that popped up. I was like, oh, that's also in the Aliens franchise. Sable makes a good point too. Fluids like blood, I think does make a difference. That's why, again, milk is a fluid. Well, I guess both would be fluids in that sense. But again, sterility is what I see with Ash. And that is the masked minotaur, a sterile, barren, machine animal tyrant. That is what the masked minotaur is, although it has the disguise of humanity. So the sterility makes more sense. And I guess because milk is not necessarily sterility either, except it ties into Mother, who runs the ship.
But that's more like fertility.
But on her end, on her end.
Right, on her end, right, yeah.
And you even said the ship has those like breast-like designs.
Yeah, which BGD is denying.
Oh, he's like, no.
Yeah, BGD completely denied that, yeah. Right here.
Very elegantly said, BGD.
But I didn't remember this. BGD says they couldn't use transparent blood because they led with cane dripping transparent snot like fluid.
But then again, that's still blood as color, which what I was saying makes more sense for organic blood. Oh, cool. Jordan Fuzz liked Prometheus. I'm glad someone's sticking up for it. There are things about Prometheus that I do like. Like I have seen it several times. I haven't just seen it once. And there are things that I get. In fact, I'll say this, and I'm really pissed off about it. Elizabeth Shaw was a great heroine. She was a great heroine in that movie, and they wasted her with Alien Covenant. They just got rid of her. And I thought that was a huge mistake. If they had a good follow-up movie for her, she could have been a memorable heroine. Anyway, I digress.
Okay.
Well, this is a sterile mother, because it's a machine. Like it's a paradox, right? It's a clash or a contrast of ideas. It's the sterile machine. Like in 2001, A Space Odyssey, it's HAL 9000. It's that there's nothing human about that. That in fact, HAL is one letter up from IBM. I, the next letter is H.
Or HAL, right?
Yeah. Or one letter back. If you take IBM and go one letter up, it spells HAL. I don't know if you guys know that. That's where that name came from. It's IBM. H is the next letter. A is the next letter from B, and L, or one letter back from M. So it spells HAL 9000. That's a machine name. That's a sterile name. So in this film, what they've done is remember the original name for Ash was supposed to be Mother 6000 in the original script. So what they did is they went the other route with that. They tried to give it very organic, and not just any organic, but mother. This huge comforting presence. And it's false. It's a false mother. I think that's important in this analysis.
Okay, well, I don't know where we need to go from here.
I'll say so in terms of archetypes. there's a few things that were reduced in this film from the Heroine's Labyrinth.
Okay.
The sacred fire in this was not as prominent as it is in Aliens. In this, because it's a horror film, the sacred fire is really survival, human life. That's what's motivating Ripley, pure survival. So there's nothing extra dynamic about the sacred fire in this besides survival, but it's primal, so we still get it. There's really no true beast as ally in this. And the fragile power, best as I could tell, is Jonesy, but that's also very flimsy. But it is a save the cat type of scenario in this.
Yeah, they don't. I was thinking about Jonesy and the sacred the fragile power, but she never really entrusts him with something to get done.
She never that's why it's a weak one, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's Jonesy doesn't really play a critical role in the final battle. Like if Jonesy jumped out and distracted the alien, and that's how Ripley fired it into the vacuum of space. Well, that's a fragile power type of scenario.
Yeah.
None of that happens. Jonesy is purely there for the horror film jump scares, in my opinion. But it's the closest thing to a fragile power in there. Home as Battleground is present. There's kind of a Shield Maiden moment in that she does go back for Jonesy, which is the classic save the cat scenario. And I would say the Black Swan, there is the helpful chaos in this. So the Black Swan has a couple elements. One is the association of the heroine with apocalyptic imagery, and she sets the Nostromo to self-destruct. So she destroys the home environment that the labyrinth that we are introduced to. It's destroyed, and so when she's running around that ship and it's filling it with like coolant and the sirens are going off and Mother's announcing you've got 1 minute to reach minimum safety. That's an apocalyptic scenario. The ship's going to blow up. And then also the helpful chaos, the vacuum of space.
Yeah, you've talked about that before. The dependence on chaos, or the heroines rely on chaos.
Right. And Drew and Fuzz, that's what I'm saying. Like, of all the parts of the archetype for the fragile power, the one that it clearly meets is the fact that this does seem to be a childlike being that needs Ripley's protection. Something that is a burden or over, something that seems small and unhelpful. So in that light, there's nothing else that really fits the fragile power except Jonesy. But it only really fits it in that real narrow definition of the archetype. So it's a pretty flimsy version of the fragile power. Newt is one of the best in the next film. And then of course you have a broken spell. Once she kills the alien, you get the change in film. She saves herself and is hopefully going to go back into hopefully she'll be saved. She doesn't realize it'll take 57 years, but the spell is broke with the death of the alien. So anyway, so those are some of the other archetypes in the film as a Heroine's Labyrinth film, but some of them are very, very strong in this, and those ones that I just mentioned now are very weak. However, I think that's more of a symptom of a horror genre than a weakness in the writing or the structure of the film. Horror films by nature minimize some of these other archetypes and then, supersize some of the other ones. Yeah.
Okay. What is the significance, in your opinion, of Ripley's underwear?
I think just cheesecake.
Really?
I mean, she's pretty nude in that. Like, it's pretty revealing. When that whole last scene, I mean, you're getting a lot of Sigourney Weaver barely clothed, and the only thing that really saves it from being pure cheesecake, in my opinion, is her acting. Like, she looks scared. Like, you're drawn back into the drama. You're not completely distracted by her. It doesn't seem to be the only thing. Like, she's still delivering a performance there.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there might be a little bit more to it than that.
Oh, okay.
Because vulnerability is one of this that okay, now we're safety and luring into vulnerability, because when you're talking about, well, she could certainly have been less clothed. I mean, okay, we've got the panty situation here, but I mean, she's still wearing a shirt. So I mean, if you're like
pajamas,
yeah, if you were going for, okay, we want flesh, she could have been less clothed.
That's true. Yeah, she could have been topless.
She could have, well, she certainly could have been topless, or but or in a bra or something like that.
The Heath cut.
Yeah, the Heath. But I mean, you could have done that. I mean, I don't know how much. I mean, to me, it's kind of weird, because to me, it's not real sexual. Like, if you're talking about
sexual, you're right.
If you're talking about, hey, let's see something like we want this really sexual moment of this, like her body, what she's wearing, even if I'm trying to look at this in terms of 1970s underwear, I don't know, I mean, it didn't strike me, because some people, I think, you've criticized this. Okay, now here we got this woman. Now she's got to be in her underwear or something like that. Okay, and I've got that, and I see that. I got that element, but it's not. I didn't see that. Like, when I was watching that, I didn't see an overly sexual scene.
It's not overly sexual, and maybe this is just me because I'm a guy, but she looks good. Like, I mean, she's a very healthy woman in those scenes. But maybe there is more to it, in that if white represents comfort and safety, that's something Sable said a second ago, the idea of lulling you into a full sense of security. Pajamas, we're safe now. It could
think she's safe, right? This is it.
Right. It could have that. Yeah, it would tie into that sense. And again, we've said that white in this film actually is false security. Mother is not really nice. Mother Ash is not really nice, full of milk, but he's bad. The white wasn't always a positive. It was a lull, a false sense of security. So that would actually hold up. Another view, a woman clad in white. Now
she is in white again. She is in white in that moment. Yes.
Right. Now we're comfortable. Now we're safe. No, you're not. Like all the other times. No, you're not.
Sable for $10 says it sets up the most effective and earned jump scare in film history. When the alien hand pops out at her, it still gets me every time, even though I know it's coming.
Dude, totally. Because they don't rush into it. She's walking around. She's setting things up. Like, you're almost like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Like, why are we still in this movie? And then that hand pops out. So it is still pretty scary. And she screams. She has a good response, fear response.
This movie has with this the constricting of the space. I was noticing that the
pressure cooker.
You put it into a smaller and smaller space, and so that's what they did with the shuttle escaping to great effect. I was going to say this was from a long time ago, but somebody BGD had said the biology. See, and I was wondering if I should even bring this up, because I was like, the transformation of the alien. From the practical perspective, yes, I questioned
how it would grow that big without eating
exactly. Because I was thinking, it skitters off after doing the chest bursting thing, and then gets out of its skin, and now it's that large. I mean, I stopped myself from thinking about this, because I was thinking when that happened, I was like, how is it storing enough energy to transform itself from the chest burster thing into the black alien thing in like a day or 2 days? Like,
yeah, without consuming anything. Well, there was a scene that was cut where it ate stuff in the kitchen.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there was a scene they cut where it got into the kitchen and ate a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I would be thinking that, okay, but maybe I shouldn't be thinking like that. That's more a Sable thing, like what's going on instead of why is going on. That's like, okay, in order to go from the worm thing to the alien thing in 2 days, man, that thing's got to consume some energy somehow.
Protein.
Yeah, that's got to eat. It's got to eat its protein in that 2 days. Yeah.
You know, I want to point out something retro nerd girls talking about. Going back to Ripley scantily dressed. You know, maybe we're interpreting it as guys. Like we're like, oh my God, she's partially naked. Oh my God, what does that mean? She's hot. But maybe when a woman's watching this, she's not seeing it like that. She might be seeing like, oh, you're comfortable enough in this industrial, dangerous environment to strip down a little bit in the comfy clothes and pajama mode. So maybe there's something to that as well, that Ripley is demonstrating an ultra high level of comfort, and she feels comfortable enough to do this. She's not around other crewmates. They always joke around. When you work from home, you're always in your PJs. Right. Maybe there's that principle at work where she's that comfortable.
Yeah, I think I'm more on retro nerd girls side because I just didn't see that as real sexual. Maybe I'm not a Sigourney Weaver guy or something like that. But because I also think I had read that she was supposed to be nude.
Oh, really?
In that, but they decided to not make her nude because they didn't want like an NC-17 rating.
Oh,
so the vulnerability side of this seems to be that, because I don't know, like maybe I'm just not.
No, I think that
maybe Sigourney Weaver isn't my type, but on the other hand, I was trying to understand at that time, like what is this? Is not, what do we say? 79.
79, yes.
M says that Doug is spot on there. So
thanks,
what's going on? Yeah, because I know that's a criticism from some feminist standpoints that okay, now she's going to get undressed, but
well, I will say, while with my kids there and everything, I was like smirking because I was like okay, there's a lot of Sigourney Weaver is going to be on this on screen now, but and yeah, maybe I am partially distracted just being a guy and seeing, a woman strip down, and I get a little distracted. Maybe that I'm not ashamed of it. It happens, but it certainly does seem to be working on another level. Because like I said, I get over it pretty quick too. Like I said, she's still delivering a performance, and I quickly forget that she's stripped down like that. But there's something to say, after all we've been through. Being that scantily dressed, there's nothing between you and like this alien.
Well, I mean, she also wears her underwear in a weird way. Like to me, like that's what I was thinking when I was watching that. Like, all right, she takes all these clothes, and man, who wears their underwear like that? So I mean, it was
Ellen Ripley. That's who.
Ellen Ripley. Doug, just for I thought about including that in the Heroine's Labyrinth trailer, but I decided not.
Really?
Yeah. There is a cut of the Heroine's Labyrinth trailer that includes that
Ellen would destroy all my credibility.
Right? Yeah, Ellen Ripley's panty shots but can
you imagine a cut of the Heroine's Labyrinth trailer? It's all like promiscuous, shots of like half-dressed women. People are like, who's this joker?
But yeah, so I got like a video of like the best clips of, I was downloading all our heroines, and it was like best clips of Ellen Ripley, and of course that's one of them. So that was in there for a moment.
Good old Ellen Ripley. But yeah, like I said, she is still performing in that. That's not just some chick reading a magazine in her bed, like in Nightmare on Elm Street, kind of nudity. But and she has to continue the scene. She has to get back into the astronaut suit.
Well, then she deal with gets into the astronaut suit. Right. So I mean, I loved it. I know my uncle has been a huge fan of Alien. He talked about Alien all the time, but I never watched this one as a kid. I watched it a long time ago and was like, oh my God, now I understand. But it'd been so long, and then I watched it again. I'm like, oh yeah, this is fantastic.
Well, and it's worth it to note, this is one of those situations where you've got a classic first film. a classic second film, arguably even better.
Yes, right. Yes.
And then it goes downhill pretty quick, just like Terminator.
Yeah, we'll probably have to do Aliens.
Yeah, Alien 3. Yes. Oh my God, that's one of my all-time favorite films is Aliens. Alien 3, I did not like it. I tried rewatching it recently, and I found that there were some parts of it that were more tolerable than I remember, but some of the effects don't quite hold up. It's that early CGI sometimes, and killing off Hicks and Newt is unforgivable. Unforgivable. I will never forget this franchise for that. Alien 4, it's like a guilty pleasure. It's not great, but I kind of like Alien 4 Resurrection. It's got this like pirate ship crew, the clone issue with Ripley. So it gets a little weird, but I kind of like Alien 4. Alien 4, yeah. Dude, I'm okay with Prometheus at times, but overall, I don't think it's a great film. And I did not like Alien Covenant at all. So my point being, despite the subsequent films just not holding up, the power of Aliens to survive and go on and to flourish in our popular culture is pretty significant. Behind me, I've got the Making of Alien books. This is just for Alien. And then over here, the RPG, Free League.
Oh, yeah, we were talking about that. Yeah, we were talking about that.
Yeah, they have a great RPG. Yep, that's it. Alien and Free League has great
Free League
rule system.
We've talked about this in the Morning Grind, yeah. Oh, look, I'm just looking at the back of this. Interface 3301, Wayland Yutani from Network.
Yeah.
Yay,
Retro has a guilty pleasure with Alien 4 too. Yeah, I'm not alone. Because there's a couple things in Alien 4 Resurrection that are really good. The underwater sequence is a great use of the aliens that we had not really seen before. I do like the pirate ship gang in Alien 4. And there's some good alien action in this one. So there's some things that are good about it. And there's actually decent plot lines with Ripley confronting her identity as a clone in this. I didn't like the ending with her, like, and the half human alien. Like, there's some weird stuff in it too. But I can watch Alien Resurrection easier than Alien 3.
Oh wait, Drew and Fuzz, the GM is the game mother. Did we talk about this game?
Oh yeah,
I'm not sure if we did or not. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe we did. I actually think that this might be the only thing that I've got, and I think we might have checked it out briefly. But this is like an expansion, and I didn't have. It says note: the Alien RPG core rulebook or the Alien RPG starter set is required to play. So I've got this. This is the Heart of Darkness. And I think we started looking at it and went, I don't have actually everything necessary to play. So I don't think I have everything to play.
Well, I've got Colonial Marines. I've got a whole bunch of stuff for Alien. I got the which one is this? Oh yeah, the role-playing game book. I've got the kit you're talking about, and then the screen and everything. You know, maybe on RavenCon.
No, I know.
We play an Alien. We get everyone in the chat. We play
we should totally. If you got it, we should totally play Alien. Yeah,
let's do Alien, because me and my buddy tested it out one time, and I could not believe how quick and lethal the xenomorph is in that game. So we had to do a funnel system where we had to create multiple characters, because the second you run into one of these things, you're going to lose a couple people. It's really hard to beat. Like, these aliens are pretty deadly. So it's not like the old D&D where you have a level 20 character. You're just trying to get out at level whatever you're at. And actually, the world building in the RPG is effing awesome. There's so much world building, so many places to go, so many angles to take, that playing Alien would be so fun.
Well, I guess I should put that out. I just put the link in the chat for RavenCon. If you're here, I know a lot of people are with me here.
We got to do that. That's a great one.
But if you are on the Morning Grind on the other channel, but if you're not and you're watching this and you want to play games, maybe we should play. I'm thinking that actually, in fact, I need to reach out to some people. The first weekend of April, we'll do another RavenCon. I'm thinking that's it.
That might be the hardest week for me, but
oh really?
My book comes out the 26th, and then I go to San Diego on the 6th.
Oh, you're headed. Well, that's okay, but that can be. I'm thinking about doing these once a month. So
imagine
if you want to know, sign up here. Sign up here. I just put the link in the comments. Sign up here.
Okay. Yeah, James, Druden Fuzz, Sable, me, we're all a Colonial Marine detachment. And Heath, you're the game mother.
I'm the game. Right. I can play game mother if that's easy. All right.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. There's so many games to play. So this is RavenCon. If you're watching this and you don't know what we're talking about, is an online game convention that I've been setting up. So yeah, when we want to play games like this, we play this completely online. So no matter where you are in the world, as long as you have the internet connection, we got games set up. We got tables set up. It's an online coffee shop with different tables that play different games. So yeah, we can play Alien. Absolutely. But if you want to know about it and you want to know when it happens, just sign up here and that gets you on the email list to know when we do it again. I'm thinking first week of April, but maybe then first week of May, maybe is when we do Alien with Doug or something like that.
That would be so fun.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
Well, there you go. That's my point is, despite the lack of follow through in this franchise and films, the Alien, just on the strength of the first two movies, is like, it's eternal. Like it has lodged itself into popular culture. It has captured our imaginations. It has spawned an entire role playing franchise. I've actually heard that, and I've never played it, and I'm ashamed of it because everyone says it's great. Alien Isolation is a video game that they say is better than any of the follow up movies.
Yeah.
Amanda Ripley, I guess, is the lead character, which is good because it stays in the heroine-centric format. She goes out to find out what happened to her mom. And apparently she stumbles into the cult of deception behind Weyland-Yutani. And I guess the whole gameplay is absolutely in the spirit of both Alien and Aliens. Yeah, everyone says nothing. They say it's phenomenal.
Isolation?
Yes, Alien Isolation. They say the story in it is better than any of the movies after Aliens.
Oh, a video game.
That would be so cool. BGD, okay. That'd be awesome. Yeah, I'm really at a tight spot right now with bandwidth wise because the book's coming out. However, I will make time for some RPG with Heath and RavenCon and everyone in the chat. Like, I bet we'd have a blast.
And it's also something that could happen on Dinner and Board Game. I'm still thinking about what to do with Dinner and Board Game.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm just saying this is a good group. Like we could have a lot of fun.
All right. Was there anything else we need to say about Alien? Is there anything that we didn't cover, Doug, or anybody in the chat that we should talk about as far as Alien goes? We covered all of my notes.
Well, someone mentioned that we didn't talk about it, but we when Ash claws Parker in the like he gives him that like eagle claw grab. it's like a weird attack for a film, but it is pretty memorable. We could talk about Dallas inside the labyrinth with the flamethrower, or Parker. I thought he was a great character. Also, the actor they found who played the alien xenomorph. You know, I saw footage. He's like the 7-foot tall actor. They ran into him in a pub, and they put him in the suit, and they show him practicing. And there's a shot of him. It's real scary, and I wish it made it into the film, where he's squatting down with his arms like in between his ankles, with his knees up, almost like a cat or a dog, but it's got that huge alien head, and it looks so freaky. I was like, oh my God, I wish they put that in the movie. But the movie is very sparing with the alien.
It is very sparing with the alien. And actually that kind of imagery is more what I like. A hunched over or down is kind of more what I think about with the alien. And I was actually kind of surprised as I was watching this, that when you do see the alien, sometimes it was standing up much more human-like.
Yes.
I was surprised about that, because just like if you had asked me before I'd seen this movie, like, or draw a picture of the alien, it definitely would have been a curled over, kind of thing. So it surprised me to see that in this initial interpretation, it's often standing up, looking rather bipedal in when you see it in Fleeting. I mean,
Yeah. Well, even that scene with Dallas inside where it's like, and it's funny. Like, I accept all of it. Like, I accept it all. But if I could go back and change anything, it would be the use of the alien. Like you said, have them on the ground, have them more quadrupedal. Like the way they use the aliens in Aliens, them hopping from wall to wall parkour style. That's the way to do it. Coming down, air vents from above, popping up and grabbing you and pulling you down from below. Like, that's Aliens. That's perfect use of those creatures. This one played it very safe. I would say it worked. It totally worked. But they sure could have done more with it, I think.
Yeah, maybe I'm thinking of stuff because I also remember basically none of Aliens. When we do that one, I'll be looking at that one basically with fresh eyes too.
Love Aliens.
So maybe they did change up things like Alien that I was talking about, or retro nerd girl was talking about.
Yeah, they did. They changed. In fact, Jim Cameron adjusted the design of the alien. He put more of that rib cage look on their head, whereas in this one, it's very smooth. They use condoms to build that mask because they had to find a texture that wasn't heavy, because the actor wearing it actually gets really heavy when you have the 6-foot thing on your head. So they use condoms to get that, because it weighs almost nothing, and to get that sleek alien look.
So
it makes sense with the phallic imagery.
But this
would approve.
Yes, yeah, you're right. Yeah. So, but as BGC, Ridley Scott. So this was the Alien was Ridley Scott, but
correct.
Then when we move to Aliens,
that's a great comment.
We're going to James Cameron.
Right. Yeah. In fact, that's a great comment, because although I'm not a fan of Alien 3, it is a product of David Fincher, and I do like David Fincher. So that movie is very much a David Fincher movie. Aliens is very much a James Cameron movie, and Alien is very much a Ridley Scott movie. That's a great comment. Yeah, we lose a little bit of the influence of the director after 3. But I've heard good things about Aliens Romulus coming up.
Oh, we got another one. There's another one coming up.
Alien Romulus, and apparently Ridley Scott saw it and said it was effing awesome. Quote. But I don't know. Hollywood's on a losing streak, so I'm not excited yet. Yeah, and by the way, Retro Nerd Girl, Aliens is in my top 10 100%. Like, when people ask me my favorite movies, there's only a couple I'm positive are in my top 10. The rest, it'd be a wrestling match. But Aliens is in fact, Aliens is probably a top 5 for me. I love Aliens.
Oh, we might have to do that one soon too. We got we got to discuss about what we're doing. Actually, what we're doing next week, we still got to discuss that with Brianna. But also coming up, Brianna mentioned to me in 2 weeks, Brianna's short film is almost finished, and she wants to do a watch party here on stream. So maybe in like 2 weeks.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that on 2 weeks we may be watching an original Brianna film.
Oh, that would be so cool. Like on a Thursday night, you said, or Tuesday night?
No, like one of the Tuesday nights or something like that. So
either way, I'll make myself available.
Because I told her that I said, send the film to me and Doug beforehand, and then we'll watch it here. So we may get to see a Brianna original here in a couple of weeks. So we will see. All right.
That'd be awesome.
Because I would love to be able to do more stuff like that with original, things like that. So Brianna's coming up, so we will see.
Yeah, that'd be. I mean, I'm in.
Yeah. I know. We need everybody. Please do sign up. Retro Nerd Girl needs to be part of. I need to get more dinner board game going, but Retro Nerd Girl and Doug also need to be.
And Retro's got great commentary. Like she'd have been great on the stream, even like talking about the movie Alien. So. Yeah, I'm a Retro Nerd Girl fan.
All right. Well, this was great. I'm so glad that we watched Alien because, like I said, it had been so long since I've seen it. So I'm very glad that we talked about it because I was watching and going, "Oh man, this is fantastic." It's been so long.
It is.
It'll be the same way with Aliens for me too. I know.
And by the way, Alien, the theatrical cut has been 4K. It's great in 4K. About 2 months ago, they finally, after all these years, since 1986 all the way to now, they just released Aliens in 4K UHD. I got it. I mean, it's one of those. The second it's released, I bought it. Watched it. It's better in 4K. Better in 4K, and specifically, everything in the background, you just see it better instead of it being just a little bit I felt like I was watching a new movie when I was watching Aliens in 4K. It was so freaking good. The movie doesn't get weaker; it gets stronger.
All right, I'm going to drop the RavenCon link one more time into the comments. So if you're here, please do like the stream. That would be huge. If you're here, please hit the like button. That tells YouTube that you like it, and that might recommend this stream to other people out there. But then also, please do sign up if you are a fan of board games and tabletop games, and then play online with us.
Yeah, and let's figure out a time to get together to play Alien with this crowd because I have a feeling we would love it and continue to play.
But we're also trying to. Right, Shirley says yes. So on that Thursday, we're trying to put together a book launch for the Heroine's Labyrinth.
Oh yeah.
So
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, we have been working on that actually today, and I was sending out messages to different people to try to do maybe like a rolling panel to talk about the Heroine's Labyrinth and Doug's book launch on the 21st. So
I would love to see y'all there. It's been a 4-year project for me, and quite honestly, a lot of the members of Table Talk and Heath's Geekverse have really been a big part of it. Inseparable. You guys are in the acknowledgments. I mentioned you guys in the book, so
we might as well say that one more time too. Go ahead and share the screen. So if you're not in on it, Doug's book, pre-order right here. Pre-launch right here. Go to Amazon and pre-order Doug's book on the Heroine's Labyrinth.
Yeah, so come on out for the book launch. I feel like we've all been kind of part of it. I'll be giving away 3 signed copies. We'll figure out the system for it, but we'll be giving away 3 of them. And we'll just have a blast. I think we're going to try to get some fun guests on here and just kind of have a little launch party of our own. We've all been working at this ourselves on some level, so we've earned it.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for being here tonight. I have enjoyed it as always on Tuesday nights. This was a great discussion. Thank you very much, Doug, for being here with me to discuss Alien. But thank you everybody for being here. So we're going to take Thursday off. We don't have anybody for a Thursday, but I'll post another video episode on Sunday. That was one of our previous episodes. That actually, it may be Roz Morris because I'm shooting the Roz Morris. She's in a different time zone. She's in London, so it doesn't really line up for her to be here. So on Saturday, I'm shooting with Roz Morris. She is a writer. She does story consultation, but she's also been extremely successful as a ghost writer. She's ghost written for a lot of people. Like she's got a stack of books that sold over 500,000 copies that she's ghost written for other people. So I'm going to talk to her about that. I'm going to pre-record the episode on Saturday. So maybe on Sunday afternoon when that comes out. I'm not sure. But I'm going to pre-record that on Saturday so that talk to her about that, and then that will be coming out. So, all right, we will see everybody very soon. We will be talking about. We got to figure out what next Tuesday's topic is, but then we're going to do the book launch, and we got a lot of other things going. So, thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Go forth, be creative, be constructive. Let's get it done.
Oh wait, Drew didn't fuzz.
Oh wait, what?
Okay, it is available because it wasn't. We were having a problem with that, getting it available in the UK. Okay, awesome. I'm glad. Thank you, Drew and Fuzz. I appreciate you telling me that. I did not know.
Okay,
awesome.
Right.
I'm glad you're getting a copy. I hope you love it. I really do.
Right, and it's actually Sable Phoenix to bring up. There's a difference between the physical party for the book and our streaming.
Yeah, so we're going to do a live stream, like book launch party fun here online.
But that's on the 21st. But
right, and here in Austin or Round Rock, I'm going to have a physical party. Obviously, y'all are invited, but it's a tall order. Sable, I have met, and Sable will be there.
Yeah, but the online book launch party is the 21st.
Right.
That's right here on this channel. So, all right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Don't get eaten by an alien. Later, everybody.
Good night, everyone.